Today I'm going to go through my predictions and expectations for the upcoming IEM Rio, starting on April the 17th, where teams will compete for their share of $250,000. They'll also get a notch towards the Intel Grand Slam. In this video, I'll discuss my playoff predictions, my dark horse, biggest team disappointment and biggest team surprise, player underperformances and player overperformances. Let's get into it and discuss my predictions for IEM Rio 2023. Okay, here's where I'm going to do my predictions. The logo sizes and names are a little bit weird, but I'll name them as I go anyway, so don't worry. I'm also going to leave the link to this tier maker in the description if anyone wants to do their own, and then you can send me them in the comments below. Okay, so I'll start by categorizing teams into my definite locks, my definite knots, my dark horse for the event, who I think is going to be the biggest disappointment, who I think is going to be the biggest surprise, and then I'll categorize the remaining teams into the should make playoffs and unlikely to make playoffs. So let's start with the easiest one and put FaZe Clan in the definite lock section. They're fresh off the back of a Grand Slam win at Pro League, and Twists, Rops and Brokey seem to be back in their absolute best form with huge impact round after round. They've also got Rain, one of CSGO's best ever aimers in my opinion, and he's the 4th best player. FaZe are a comfortable pick here, and I think they'll take care of business. Cloud9 are my second definite lock team. Hobbit, Shiro and Axel are all in good form in the minute, and in my opinion, Shiro's arguably the #1 player in the world right now. He's got constant impact, constant clutches, constant openings. Having a god form Shiro alongside 2022's best rifler in Axel, he's also back in hot form. This just makes them an easy lock for me. For my third and final definite lock, we're going to go with Heroic. They're arguably the 2nd best team in the world, maybe tied second with FaZe. They're one of the best teams to watch. They've got an extremely impressive and tactical T side, and they're renowned for their fluid, dynamic, and every other good word you can name for them, for their CT sides. I think they're definitely going to make it through. Aside from their one loss to EG, they rarely lose to underdogs too. So now we're going to move on to my definite knots, and unfortunately for IHC, they're now known as TheMongolz, by the way. I just didn't have the logo for them when I made this. The recent removal of Score makes me put them here, because after their Katowice performance, I was really surprised by them. They took down FURIA, they took down Cloud9, and they just look different to regular Asian stereotype teams, where they didn't just rely fully on their aim. They had a tactical depth to them, and it was really nice to watch. I just don't think they have the firepower to hang with many other teams at Rio here. And even though I'm a big fan of Blitz and Annihilation, I just don't see them making it through here. My second definite not team is going to be 9Z. They've got some really genuinely talented players, but I just don't think they have enough. They don't really have that star power, that star factor that's going to take over and beat someone like fnatic, or even someone like MOUZ or OG even. I just think they've got the weakest firepower at this entire event out of every single team here. And unless it's going to be a mega overperformance from someone like Try, I just think they're going to have a rough time. It'll be a good chance to gain experience, but I think it's going to be nothing more than that. Now for my Rio Dark Horse, I'm actually going to go with Vitality. Having ZywOo automatically makes you a contender to win things, but in my opinion having Apex also makes you a contender to lose things and just completely bomb out of events. I don't really have much faith in Apex as a caller. His mid-range calling is really shaky, and I have even less faith in his individual game. He gives away so many man advantages, it's really frustrating to watch. But like I said, they've got ZywOo. If Spinks is also on his game and Magus continues to be solid, there's a world where Vitality just blitz through this and take home the trophy. So for my biggest disappointment, it feels strange to say this, but I'm going to have to go with NIP. They've been terrible recently, like undeniably, absolutely terrible. They've had really awful performances, struggling heavily in the Dallas qualifiers. Their confidence just must be at an all-time low right now. I really think a bad placing here could mean the end of LXCB on NIP. And actually, in my opinion, the end of his tenure on tier 1 teams. I think he needs to go to somewhere like Sprout or Avu or Jano, just somewhere down in the tier 2 region to build his confidence back up, because his past few tier 1 stunts have just been really poor. It's sad to see a legendary org like NIP being put in a disappointment category, but I think Rio's going to be the final nail in the coffin here. On a more positive note, I'm going to go with 9 as my biggest surprise. The Polish boys have been excellent in tier 2. They've had consistent performances across the board. I'm a big fan of Hades, and was a big fan of him, even in Ents. And since he's moved back to a fully Polish lineup, they've been insane. Kai, Kyler and Goofy also have a really solid level of firepower between those three. I think they could do some real damage here and take home a few upsets. Okay, we're now through all the special categories, so let's organise the remaining teams and put them into the should make it and unlikely to make it. I'm going to start with big here, and I'm at a point where I've lost all hope for the German side, to be honest. Apart from Krimbo, everyone in this team right now is poor individually. Like, it's noticeably bad. Hyped isn't bringing enough. He doesn't bring enough as much as Searson did for me, in my opinion. Absent is in probably his worst form of all time. Don't quote me on that, but he seems to be having a lower rating average than I've ever seen a player like him have before. And then you just don't get enough from Keto and Favre, in my opinion. I'm a big fan, to be honest. I usually always cheer for them no matter who they're playing against, but I think they're going to have to get really lucky here in order to do anything. As for Fnatic, I'm actually a believer. I think they need to make playoffs here to prove to themselves that this lineup actually works. They've had rough patches and they've had really good performances, but it's now time to find some genuine consistency. They made it 3-0 and automatically qualified to the Legend stage at the RMR, and I just think that that's granted these boys the confidence that they need to tell themselves, okay, we can really do something here. As for FURIA, okay, FURIA. They have Cesarato. He's one of the best riflers in the game, but they still seem to struggle endlessly. They've recently lost to teams like EG Black, not even the EG main team, EG Black. I think they need a result here. I also think they need changes personally, but the sheer firepower of Furia's sharpest fang is going to be enough to take them through to playoffs, I think, especially in Brazil. Okay, this IB is mibr, and mibr are a tricky one for me. Insani is a sick talent. That's very clear. He's insanely sharp, and he is insane. As for everyone else on the team, in my opinion, they're just a bit ugh. Nobody really stands out or takes over games, to be honest. They've recently lost their two strongest riflers to Imperial in Jota and Cello. And although they brought an equally strong one in, if not better, it's just not going to be enough for me, and I'm going to say that they won't make it. MOUZ Sports. I'm a big fan of MOUZ, to be honest. I think they're really fun to watch, and they have a genuinely insane firepower duo between Frozen and Exertion. Frozen, in my opinion, is one of the absolutely most underrated star riflers that CSGO's ever seen. His impact is ridiculous, and he's very young. The only thing for me that holds MOUZ back is the weaknesses between Dexter, JDC, and Torji. Especially Torji. He just doesn't bring enough for me. He's a main opper and he regularly goes missing. That being said, I'm going to put them here because I really believe in the Frozen and Exertion duo, and I think it could be any team when it's firing. Now Na'Vi are one of those teams where even when you look at them and they look shaky, they just end up winning. I don't know how they do it, but you just kind of always have to back them to go through to playoffs no matter what shape they're in. They have the simple factor as well where he could just win games himself, and Bit is looking back to his best form ever since NPL's been added, and NPL himself actually played really well at the RMR there. I've got to say, really well. I'm also personally a believer in Electronic as an IGL. I think he's shown genuine promise, and he's always had exceptional game sense as a player. The issue for me is that Electronic is and was a top 7 player in the world for 4 years in a row. That's a lot of firepower to lose, to replace with a 17-year-old from the academy. Still, they should make playoffs here, and I think they will. OG are a weird one for me, because I'm a big fan of Dexter and I'm a big fan of Flames. It's just that everyone else on the team is so average. It's really sad. Piku and Neofrag have been really bad since they joined. They were like insane for tier 2. And I understand that their roles are different now. They were the star players of their teams and now they're not. I get that. But they just whiff kills. They should never be whiffing, and they make such weird decisions that as if they're still playing tier 2. Even lower than tier 2 sometimes. They don't even have their IGL now. Nex is gone. They have Nico now, who as far as I'm aware has never been an IGL. I just don't think they're going to make it through here, to be honest. Even though I think Dexter's a top 5 operator in the world and Flames is a brilliant rifler, I just think that if OG bomb out here, which I think they're gonna, this is going to be the last for OG. This lineup anyway. Even though they don't have Nexa and this is a new lineup, I think if Fiku and Neofrag have another stinker event, one of, if not both of them, are getting cut. Now lastly, Outsiders are now back to being called Virtus Pro, but again I don't have the logo because I made this earlier. I was actually going to take Virtus Pro as my dark horse instead of Vitality because Jame is an icon in Brazil, and remember they won the major in this very city. I think the firepower spread between Bame, Flit, Jame and Chiron is very strong, but the absolute mess that just happened at the RMR just there, I don't even know if I should put them in the should make it. Like, that was awful. Fortunately for them, I think they're strong enough individually and stable enough as a team. I think James a good IGL. I think they're going to bounce back and make playoffs here, and I think that they need to. Otherwise, there's going to be a big overhaul to FaZe Pro. Okay, moving on from my predictions, let's talk about some main storylines that I'm going to be keeping my eye on throughout the event. I think this is going to be the last chance for some teams and also some players. I think a bad result or performance here could and probably should mean the end of some rosters. This is also a good time for teams to step up and impress, or for players to deliver to their expected level and secure their position on the team. We also have to consider the fact that neither G2 or Liquid are at the event, both teams that in recent months have been the ones to topple FaZe, and what this might mean for FaZe if they were to go on to win the event here. Okay, let's talk last chances. It's clear that NPL has really been struggling since his promotion to Navi, and apart from his recent performance at the RMR, he's still yet to post a positive event rating, with his current highest being just 0.95 at Katowice. Although the addition of NPL has reawakened Bit and allowed Bit to play more of his favourable positions again, NPL's inexperience often shows, and his lack of firepower has been a serious issue in some matches. With FURIA's two fangs as potent as Cerato and Yuri, FURIA should be a team placing top 4 event in and event out. These are some of the most talented Brazilian players of all time, and in Cerato's case, one of the most talented riflers period. Art's IGLing is a hot topic recently, with his very high risk plays not being rewarding enough. Safe is still yet to display numbers similar to what he was posting in Pain, and Drop seems to have a very short temper, openly raging quite often. They'll be the home crowd favourites again, and that might boost them, but a failure here could mean an entire rebuild around the two fangs of FURIA. fnatic have shown small glimpses of greatness at times, and they've proved to boast a very solid level of firepower across the board. The issue with fnatic lies in consistency. FaZe and Nikodos both tend to go missing at times and don't provide enough. They recently did a role swap between Roy and FaZe, I believe, and Roy's performances have suffered a pretty heavy dip consequently. This might be the last tournament where a middle of the pack finish isn't good enough for fnatic, and could warrant the replacement of either Nikodos, FaZe, or even both. It might be time to allow Roy to go back to doing what he does best, and opt for a stronger opper like Mantu or Searson. They've also got the option to get in a real genuine IGL and allow Mezzi to be the star rifler we all know he can be. IEM Rio could make or break this iteration of fnatic. When Torji first joined MOUZ from MOUZ NXT, he showed signs of being a genuinely solid opper. He didn't quite display the consistent dominance that he did in the Academy leagues, but he showed that he was capable. In recent months though, Torji has shown a genuine issue with consistency and choking in intense games, finishing only 3 of his last 8 events with a green rating, not including the RMR. Rio might be the final test for the young upper, and if this is another Torji performance similar to what we've come to expect now, I think this is his last on MOUZ. IEM Rio could be a stage where teams can really start to show if they can hang with the big boys. And for me, one of the teams I'm most excited for, and my biggest surprise, is 9. This fully Polish powerhouse lineup has absolutely bossed the tier 2 scene since the addition of Hades, and they boast an extremely impressive win rate of actually 76% over the last 3 months at the time of recording. They've got serious rifle talent in the form of Kai, Kyler and Goofy, alongside a back-in form Hades. This event could be a statement performance from 9, and I have high hopes that this actually might be the rebirth of Polish CS. For IHC, otherwise known as TheMongolz now, they had very impressive wins at Katowice. Like I said earlier, they beat FURIA and Cloud9. Those are 2 big names, but since then, they kind of dropped off a bit. Disappointing performances at Pro League and the sudden removal of Score has paused hopes for the Mongolians, and IEM Rio is now a chance for them to prove not just to everyone else, but also to themselves that Katowice wasn't a fluke, and that replacing Score is a benefit rather than a curse. After Searson left Big, my expectations and hopes left alongside him. Unfortunately for Big, alongside losing their star opper, the German talisman in Tabson has also suffered with inconsistency in a very poor run of individual form. He's got just a 1.02 rating over the last 3 months, and I think that might be the lowest Tabson's ever had. He's also got no real standout stars to make up for it. I think Big are going to face some real issues with firepower, and they might struggle to fight back against some of the bigger boys here. Rio can be a chance for Big to show something worth cheering for, and for players like Hyped to show their ability on a consistent level. For me personally, Hyped is a less cerebral Searson. He might take a few more risks and get a few more opening duels, but he's also much more prone to mistakes. Big with Searson were borderline tier 1, gatekeepers of tier 1. This new iteration of Big are even struggling regularly in tier 2. Rio needs to be a bounce back event for big. Something else we have to point out is that there's no G2 or Liquid here at Rio, the two teams who recently have been able to beat FaZe. G2 are the #1 team in the world right now according to the HLTV ranking, and a lot of people would agree, including myself. Team Liquid, although they've not been playing the best at the minute, they're a bit shaky, they've still got an incredibly strong team with incredible players. A tier 1 event that doesn't have the #1 team attending just gives Rio a tiny asterisk for me for whoever wins it, but the competition is still very strong between everyone else, so it doesn't really matter, and I won't hold much weight to this. Lastly, I want to talk about FaZe Clan. Grand Slam winners, the best team of 2022. It might surprise you to know that Pro League was FaZe's first event win since Cologne last year, which was in July. They seemed to lose motivation and drop off quite considerably. They seemed to lose motivation and drop off quite a bit after a big win. Think of events like Dallas, Roubaix and Blast Spring where they lost straight after winning a big event. And in CS right now, the only thing as big as winning a major is winning a Grand Slam. Like I said earlier during my predictions, I could see FaZe Clan using Rio as a breather. But I don't think they're going to show too many of their cards and tricks. They might experiment with the map pool and they might not have 100% focus here. Okay, so let's finally stop talking about teams and start talking about players. Specifically, which player do I think is going to overperform at the event and show more than what we're used to seeing, and which player I think is going to do the opposite and underperform at the event. So for my overperformance, I'm going to go with Insani. I think he's going to be my player to watch for Rio here. The Brazilian talent has shown an insane level of play since being promoted to the main team, and I want to see how he plays while being supported as hometown heroes. A few notable mentions for this category are Bit, Rosen and Kai. For my underperformance pick, I'm going to have to say Dupree, which makes me really sad to say, but he's just been out of it for a while now. He's also newly a father, and I can't imagine that he's been spending much time in the server outside of practice. He also had to sit back and watch Jax and Vitality play really well during his absence, only to then come back and they lose immediately to ENCE. Unfortunately for Dupree, I think his time on Vitality might be coming to an end. I've gone through predictions, I've gone through storylines, performances. Let's talk about who I think is going to be crowned champion of IEM Rio 2023. Instead of going for maybe the most probable answer and team that most people might think will win, which is FaZe Clan, it's actually a toss-up between Heroic and Cloud9 for me. FaZe just tend to drop off a bit after winning something, and I'm worried that this might be the case for them again. Especially at an event this close to the major. They're going to be wanting to save things, and I think they're going to experiment with the map build here. They've already won the Grand Slam, so I think Rio just holds no weight for them right now. For Heroic and C9, this has the potential to be a confidence building tournament and one that they can prove to themselves that things are on the right path by winning. So I think the winner of IEM Rio 2023 is going to be Cloud9. Shiro is just so damn good, and if he keeps it up, which he always seems to do, I think this is going to be where he cements his spot as the #1 player in Counter-Strike right now. And that concludes today's video. I hope you enjoyed this type of content. Drop a like if you did. In future for the biggest events, I'm going to do some kind of recap video where I go over the event as a whole, but for this one I'm just going to do the preview, and then in future we'll do the review. So enjoy the event, good luck to the teams you're cheering for, and thanks for watching. Peace.